Well, good afternoon, everybody. Matt over at SFREP in Silva. Glad you could join us. We're going to be taking your questions on Appraisal Pro here in just a few seconds. And Appraisal Pro, for those of you who don't know, it's our new software that is just been, or it's just now available. We haven't made a big deal of it being available yet. We're still kind of rolling it out in stages to our customers, mainly so that our tech support doesn't get overwhelmed with people, needing help with installing it or whatever. But it is now available. So just keep that in mind when you're watching this live stream. I'm going to go over Appraisal Pro and kind of show you a couple of the ins and outs about it. But just keep in mind that it is available. You can contact our sales department. You can contact them at 800-523-0872. Just give them a call and say, hey, I'd like to get Appraisal Pro. The cool thing is that Appraisal Pro can can exist on your system side by side with Appraisal Classic, which is what you are probably using now. So just keep that in mind. You can get Appraisal Pro, you can put it onto your system, and you can start exploring it, start using it, start learning it. And you don't have to worry about, having to be rushed and making a giant switch all at once. You can kind of move over at your own pace. You can also email them, sales@sfrep.com. Now, a couple of things. In this video, if you mouse over the video window in YouTube, and you go to the lower right-hand corner, there'll be a little button there that looks like a square. If you click on that, it will make the video larger or even full screen, probably make things a little bit easier for you to see. You can also change the resolution. We're streaming at 1080p, so to make things a little bit more clear for you, if you'd like, you can click on the little sprocket icon, and you can change your stream to 1080p if it's not already set to that currently. Now, this is the first of these that we've done on YouTube. Usually we do these on Facebook, but there are some people that don't have Facebook accounts and were confused and couldn't get to those streams. So we're doing this one on YouTube. If you do not have a YouTube account, you won't be able to comment and ask questions. If you do have a YouTube account and you're signed in, which most of you probably are, you can leave some comments there and basically any questions that you have, and then we'll go over those questions as we go. We'll periodically pause and check those questions. Now, if you don't have a YouTube account, don't worry. You can also email your questions, any questions that you might have, to training@sfrep.com, and I'll check that as well. And any questions that you might have, I can answer them there as well. All right. So what are we going to go over here in this video? Well, we're going to go over a couple things. We're going to go over the user interface, starting and opening reports, report search, forms management, filling out a report, report viewer mode, getting help, and service status. Now, these, we're only going to spend a couple of minutes in each of these. I don't want this to be too long of a video, and I want to be able to answer your questions, since that's the main reason why we're actually here, so that you can actually ask your questions in real time. All right, so we'll go ahead and we'll get started. And of course, there is a new icon for Appraisal Pro. So once you install it, this will be on your desktop in addition to the Appraisal Classic icon. So it's just an updated icon. We made it different enough so it'll be easy for you to pick out on your desktop to make sure that you are opening up Pro instead of Classic. But you'll very quickly realize that you're in Pro if you try to open it up. So that opened up on my other monitor, so I just had to pull it over here. And so the first thing that we want to go over here is we want to go over the user interface. Now, the user interface has changed quite a bit in Appraisal Pro, but we've left it familiar enough so that you'll be able to easily transition over and figure out what's going on. If you've ever used Microsoft Office, a lot of this will be very familiar to you. So just keep that in mind, that we've taken a lot of design cues from Microsoft Office. So we want this to be very familiar for you. Now, when you first open Appraisal Pro, it is going to be in an area that we call the backstage. And the backstage is kind of a starting point for the program. And it also functions as doing the same things that the file menu did in Appraisal Classic. You can do things like open up or start a new report. You can open up an existing report. You can search, which this replaces the old file index in Appraisal Classic. And then you can change your settings. Now I'm just going to open up a blank default 1004 UAD report here so we can go over the other new user interface elements. Now, primary of which you will probably notice is the ribbon bar. This is being used, it was first brought in as a design philosophy with Microsoft in, I think, Office 2007. And they've really kind of embraced it as a design philosophy in subsequent versions of Windows. And it's very, very prominent in Windows 10. As a matter of fact, if I open up, and you can see it if you want, by opening up it as well, I'll open up WordPad, which comes with Microsoft, which comes with Windows 10, but it's also in Windows 7 and Windows 8. And you'll notice that it too has this same ribbon bar here. So this will be very familiar to you, and it's a great way to kind of organize things with nice, easy to see icons. And it's a much larger toolbar, so it allows you some space to kind of label things a little bit better as well. Down here, we have the different panels on the sides. Now, by default, you're going to have the report panel, your validator, which now includes real-time validation. We'll go over that here in a little while. Your responses, so these are your what used to be your F keys that would be up at the top, and your other common responses. They'll be listed here. And then and then right here you have your format. Now, when you're not in a UAD field, this is just going to give you what all of the different colors mean, because everything in here is color coded. When you go into a UAD controlled field, like the assessor parcel number, then this turns into what we have in Appraisal Classic called the UAD helper. And that way you can fill this out in any of these green fields, which are UAD controlled fields. And each of these menu items, you'll see the menu bar or the ribbon bar changes whenever you go to a different menu. So this is just like the menus in Appraisal, except instead of expanding down, they're going to expand laterally along the ribbon bar here. And then the final element to the ribbon bar is this special area over here. This is the text field. So when you come over here to field tools here, right now, the reason this is a different color is this is a dynamic ribbon toolbar. So right now, since I'm in a field, I get these different field, these are like text field icons. However, if I go into, let's say, the extended comments, which are word processing based, we'll go to scope of appraisal here. Now you'll see I get a different toolbar where I have page layout, table tools, picture tools, different of these. So this area that's blue, it will change dependent upon what type of field you might be in. And you see now that I'm not in any field at all, it just disappears. So it only shows up when it's needed. Now in the center, we have the editing pane. And the editing pane, the really cool thing about this is going to look very familiar to you. We've changed the colors around a little bit, so it's a much nicer, more modern color scheme, but it's still the same that you're used to in Appraisal Classic. This is all, it's what you see is what you get, or what they call WYSIWYG, which means as you type into these fields, you're seeing a visual representation of what the actual form looks like. Now, the cool thing we have added to here, though, is that you can now open up multiple different types of pages. I'll open up location map and flood map here, and you'll notice that these are now tabbed. And the cool thing about these tabs is they work very much like they do in, say, Google Chrome or Firefox or whatever web browser you may use. That these tabs, they work the same. You can click between them. You can click on the X to close them. And you can even pull them out. So I can click and hold, and I can pull it out. And I can actually have this in a separate window. And if I want, I can move this to a different monitor and then maximize it on that monitor. Or if I'm done and I want to put it back where it was, I can just simply pop it back in just like I would in Chrome. And when I did pull it out, you'll notice there are these little sections here, like this little circle here, and then these little sections. What these do is you see the little blue section, that'll kind of show you what will happen. You just kind of have to drag it on top of it. So if I click it here, it's going to put my location map on the top. But I could also click it, grab it again, and I could put it, say, over. Oh, oops, that didn't take. Try that again. Oh, I see what I did here. Bring it down here, and I can put it on the side. And then I can put this back on the top. And there, and then I can close that, and we're back to normal. So you can do that with not only these tabs, but you can also do them with the different panels. See, I could pull that report panel out and I could do the same thing. I could put it over here if I wanted, or I can just simply put it right back where it was by doing that. And there it's on top. So you'll want to play around with that. It's a concept that looks complicated when you see someone else do it, but when you start messing around with it, it clicks for you finally, and it really makes sense. And if don't worry about like messing something up. Like if I did something really weird here and I'm like, oh my gosh, what the heck did I just do there? All you have to do is come over to the view pane or the little view menu and then select reset to default, say yes, and it puts everything back the way it was. So you can play around with it and don't have to worry about, oh gosh, am I going to mess something up here? And things like the format panel, if you decide, hey, I don't really need the format panel for this report, you can just click on that little icon and it disappears. Click on it and it comes back. So it's pretty simple. All right, so let's move on to starting and opening reports. Before I do that, let me check and see if you guys have put any questions in there. Once again, if you have any questions, you can email them. You can simply email training@sfrep.com, or you can just comment on the video to the right if you're signed into YouTube. Okay, starting and opening reports. Real simple here. We're going to close this report. So to close this report, I'm going to go to Home, and I'm going to select Close. The cool thing is you can have multiple instances of Appraisal Pro open, so you could open up 2 reports and actually have them on 2 separate monitors and copy and paste in between them. But right now, I don't want to do that. Right now, we only have 1 open. So I've closed the report, and I'm going to come over here back to the backstage, which is our starting point, if you remember. And to do that, I'm going to click on File, because technically it is the File menu, but you'll notice it's black, and that's because it's special. So when you click on that, it's going to go back to the backstage. Now, by default, this is the equivalent of File New. I have all of my different forms listed here. And over here on the right, I have all of the templates for those forms. Now, a template, we'll go over that a little bit more on how to set up a template, but a template basically, you can think of it as kind of replacing the functionality of both a skeleton and of a cloned report. So those of you who are cloning reports, you don't have to do that anymore. That's kind of wrapped up into templates. Templates are actual report files. So you're kind of, in a sense, cloning reports whenever you do that, but you don't have to worry about that causing any problems like it sometimes did in Appraisal Classic. And we treat them also in the way that you do this kind of like how skeletons were. But skeletons were limited because they were very hard to set up in Appraisal Classic. And the way, it was tough getting certain things into them. And it was just a bad system in a lot of ways. So we improved that by creating these templates. And right now I don't have any templates, but I'm going to create one here for you in a little while. But as I select a different form, its associated custom templates will be over here on the right-hand side. And then I can just select them. In this case, it would just be the default template, and then I can click on Create Report. However, if I just want to use the default template for any of these forms, I can simply double-click, and it will launch that form. Or I can click on it, select Default Template, Create Report, however you want to do it. There's also a way better search for forms. So let's say I wanted to search for let's see, what do I want to search for here? Let's do 2055, and it'll show me all of the 2055s, including UAD, Fannie Mae. And of course, some of these are going to overlap because it's going to show up here and here because it's both UAD and Fannie Mae. Freddie Mac, of course, it's going to also show up there. But then I have the non-lender versions, and then I have the old 2055, the legacy forms from November of 1997. And if I want to go back to the full list, I just click on X there, and it takes me back to the entire list. You can search for keywords, you can search for form numbers, you can search for any type of word that may be contained in that actual form name. Okay, also we have open. Really simple, just like the File Open menu. You can open a report, self-explanatory. You can open up a classic report, and that'll take you straight to your classic data folder. In this case, this is a brand new install of Windows that I literally did a couple of days ago, so I don't have any of my old forms loaded up yet. But if I wanted, I could just load that sample ua5.rpt. Now, Appraisal reports are going to be RPTX because they're a different file format. But you can also open up RPT files. So it's fully backwards compatible. You can open up any of your old reports. I can also open up a Mismo document. This can be really helpful if you're moving over from another software provider, or if for some reason you lose your file, you can't find it, but you still have the Mismo XML version of it, you'll be able to load that in. Of course, it'll only load in the meat and potatoes of the report. It won't load in things like photos and map pages, but it's better than nothing. And then, of course, we have Open Template and Open Classic Skeleton. Open Template, it's just here because why not? But of course, you can open a template from over here as well. But you can open a template, but this is the one that you will probably use quite a bit, at least in the beginning, and that's Open Classic Skeleton. When you click on that, you can actually navigate to your skeleton folder, and it will open up all of your, you have the ability to open up your Appraisal Classic skeletons, and then from there you can modify them and then save them as templates. We didn't want to do a mass import of skeletons because there is a technical limitation there in the way that Appraisal Classic handles skeletons. It will mark a page as being modified even if you've just opened it up and then saved the report. So it would bring in a lot of extra stuff. So we didn't want to do a mass conversion of all of your skeletons. This is a good time to do some spring cleaning, clean house. I would very much recommend you just go ahead and create some new templates from scratch. But if you want to, if you have a really complex skeleton, you can open that up. And then when you get it into Appraisal, it'll open up like a regular report. You can clean it up and then save it as a template. Under search, unfortunately, like I said, this is a brand new install of Windows, so I don't have all of my old files in here. But what you can do is with the search, you can search by street address, unit number, city, state, zip. This is just all the stuff that I have set up by default, but you can add additional fields here. Let's say I want to add map reference. Now I can search by map reference, and I can search multiples. So I can do, hey, I want to see all the files that are in Asheville, North Carolina, and I can just type in here Asheville. And then I can further narrow that down by selecting North Carolina, which, I mean, let's be honest, you're probably only doing 1 or 2 states. But I can search for Asheville, North Carolina. Then I can go to a specific zip code and do 28801, and I only see all the files that I've done in 28801. So the more information that you put in here, the more refined your search is going to be. And if I want to, I can just blank these out, or I can clear them by hitting the clear button and say yes. Now, if I don't want to search by state because, hey, I only do appraisals in North Carolina and no other state, I can remove that selection by hitting this little button here, getting rid of it. And let's say I do a lot of stuff by map reference. Well, what I can do is I can use these little up arrows and I can move map reference up in the list to be, let's say, right underneath zip code and before county. When you do a search, they will show up here in a grid, kind of like you would see in Microsoft Excel, and you'll get the front view photo as well, so you can get a little visual representation of it. And then you just double click to open it up. You can also do a big search. So if you wanted to, say, share all of your appraisal information or appraisal list, like let's say you wanted to make a list for tax purposes or whatever at the end of the year, you wanted to make a list of all of the appraisals that you did that year. You could come over here to invoice date or appraised value date, whichever you want to do a date range there, and then you'll get the list and you can export them as either an Excel file or a comma separated value, something like that. So we had that requested by a lot of people because they do end of the year reports and things like that. And finally, under settings, now most of these you probably won't have to modify. You may want to get on with our tech support before you kind of go through here, but you can of course go through here if you're an advanced user. You can change things like the default color scheme. Come in here under common responses. There's a bunch of different options you can kind of go through here. If you don't know what that particular option does, just contact our tech support. They'll be happy to help you out. All right. What is next on our list? Oh, you know what? I just realized I did this in the last thing and I didn't switch this over, and I apologize. So real quickly, I hate doing that. I need 3 monitors is what it boils down to. But what I was going over was how to open up different reports from here. There was also search. This is the search I was talking about, where you can move these around. Okay, with these little arrows here, you can add a field from here if I add borrower name, and then I can move it up in the list. And if I don't want borrower name anymore, I can just click remove. All right, and then if I want to clear everything, I just hit clear. Yes. And then if I type something in here, I can just click on search to do my search. And then here was settings where you can click through on all these settings. I apologize for that. I did that in the last training and I haven't learned my lesson there evidently. All right, so let's go back to topics. Report search. Kind of went over report search, but if you have any more questions on this, this is pretty straightforward. I wish I had actually set up some things that I could search. I can see in, let's see if I don't think I have anything in here. Yeah, see, I don't get anything back. But as you start using Appraisal Pro, this will start growing. You can do very broad searches or you can do very narrow searches. Forms management. All right, so forms management. Let's go and let's open up a brand new appraisal report. I'm just going to use the default 1004 here. So there we go. And before I go any further, let's take a look at some of the questions here. I want to get some of these questions in. Yeah, a couple of people were saying they couldn't see what I was doing. This is why I need 3 monitors. This is why I need to petition the company to get me a 3rd monitor. Okay. So we're back where we need to be. So sorry about that, everybody. Okay. Forms management. Now what that means is in Appraisal Classic, everything was available to you under the contents menu. In Appraisal Pro, things are a little bit different. We've moved to what's called a container system. Now what that means is that you, instead of building your report at print time and then trying to remember what you filled out and then kind of assembling it at the end and then printing it or saving it as a Mismo XML, what you do in Appraisal Classic is you kind of, like, this is a default template. So I start with a couple of things here. But let's say in this particular report, I'm not going to have, I don't know, let's see, what do I want to get? I'm not going to have any generic listings. So what I can do here is in the report panel, I can select generic listing comp photos, remove it, yes. And then let's see if I have the actual generic, and then here's the generic listing adjustments. We're not going to need that. And let's see, I don't think there is actually a generic listing in there. So yeah, I'm not seeing it. Let's say maybe I didn't need a sketch page for some reason. I don't know why you wouldn't want one, but you can remove that as well. What about adding a form? Well, if that particular form is already there, and it's able to, I'm able to add multiples of it, there'll be a little plus next to it. So right now I have sales comps 4 through 6, but let's say I'm also going to need a 7 through 9, so I can just click the plus. It'll add in 7 through 9, and then down here at the bottom, I'll have sales comp photos 7 through 9 as well. Now the other thing I can do, in addition to those like simple tasks that you can just do right here in the report pane, I can come up here if I want to add a specific addenda. I can come up here to add forms, and this will give me a window where I can scroll through here and find specific forms that I'm looking for. Now I can do that in 2 ways. I can actually use this little tree and go through here and say, okay, I need to add a map form. Here are the different maps that I want to add. I could select, let's say, general map, and then come over here on the right. And let's say I want to add that right below flood map. So I'm going to select whatever it is below flood map, and then I can just simply use this arrow to pop it in under flood map. And I can put multiples of that in there. So I can put 3 of them in there. The other thing I can do is I can just hit double click and it'll put it in there as well. So just select where you want it to be. But if you make a mistake, let's say I want flood map to be after that, I can just come down here and use these little arrows and I can move it down. So this is important because you're going to want to make sure that you build your report the way you want it to be printed to PDF while you're actually creating the report or at the beginning, rather than doing that at the end when it comes to print time. The big advantage to this is that you'll always know what was delivered to your lender or AMC if you come back later and open up this report. So the big takeaway you're going to want to have here is make sure that you remove anything that you never filled out. That way you know exactly what is in this report and exactly what was sent to your lender. Now there's another way for you to know that, and I'll show it to you when we get to the exporting of your report, either to printing or to Mismo XML. Okay, so the other way you can do that, let's go back in there, is I can do a search. So I can do a search for, let's say, FDA. No, there's nothing on the FDA. Let's do REO. So I can just do a search for REO. Whoop. REO. There we go. And these are the different REO forms. Let's say here's the 2010 supplemental. Let's move this out a little bit so I can see. So there's the photos. There's the actual addendum from 2008. So I can just come over here and I want to put that below. Let's see, I want to put that after generic listings. So I just come up here, move it over. There it is, save and close, and now it's in there. Now, if you want to change the order of things over here on the left-hand side in the report panel, you can do that at any time. You just click and you can drag them. So I can group these together in any way that I want, move them around, or like I said, if I don't need it, just click on remove form, hit yes, and it's gone. Pretty simple. Let's see. Jennifer said, I usually put the page with comps 4 through 6 after page 2. Is there a way to do that? Let's see. I think that no, because that is part of the actual form. So you would have to, it wouldn't let you do that. You would have to make that change. Yeah, there's no way you can do that because these are copyrighted forms. So we have to present the core body of the report in the actual ways that they want it. So we have to leave that. I'll note that and double check with our forms designer on that, but I'm pretty sure that because these are copyrighted forms, we have to present the core body of the report in the way that that Fannie Mae intends it. Now, later on, you can, reshuffle them in a way that you want after they've been exported from Appraise It, but I'll double check on that. You may want to email me, that training@sfrep.com, and I can find that out for you for sure. Just maybe send me an email, and that way I can remember after this and I can ask that, okay? All right, so I really do need 3 monitors. Let's go back to the topics card. Filling out a report. This is real simple, filling out of a report. It's the exact same way that you did it in Appraise It Classic, with a couple of small exceptions that I think you guys are going to like. Let's say that you have a really long city name. Let's call it... So we'll say Asheville in the, that's in the Blue Ridge. So we'll say Asheville in the, and watch what happens as I reach the end of the city. So let's say it's a really long city name, Asheville in the LUERIDGE. Notice that what ends up happening is it starts shrinking. And that's so that you can just fit a little bit extra in there, fudge it a little bit if you run out of space, instead of just having to redo the font in the entire report. What it'll do is it'll just make this particular cell a little bit smaller. It's almost not noticeable, and it only does it for this particular field. And it gives you just a little bit extra. Now, there is a limit because you don't want it to get too small. So right there, I've reached the limit. So if I back up here, you'll see that it'll get big again. And it only does it if I exceed that limit. So that's a really cool feature. It was requested a lot, and we made sure that we added. Other than that, there's a couple other small little things. Extended comments are still there. So if I type out the legal description and I get to the end, then it will trip over into extended comments. And that's what that darker shade of blue means. It means that there is an extended comment addendum that is associated with that particular field. But just as it did in Appraise It, it'll spill over to extended comments. It'll automatically open up the extended comments addendum, and then it'll say, see additional comments here. So that hasn't really changed. The other kind of cool thing that there is if I tab to get into these checkboxes here, when I tab to get them, you'll notice that they have little, letters in them. And what that allows me to do is if I hit T, it'll put an X in T for tenant, and then it'll move on to the next one. And it does that for pretty much any grouped checkboxes. So here I have year for per year, and I have per month for the HOA value, and then I can just hit Y for per year. And then you'll see now I've gone back into property rights appraised, and I can hit F for fee simple. And that way I can kind of keep my hands off the mouse, keep my hand on the keyboard, and eventually that'll become muscle memory, and you'll be able to burn through the reports really fast. Everything else, though, is pretty much the same. I did show you the tabs earlier, so you can have multiple different pages open on here. And, of course, you can pull those tabs out and you can put them on multiple monitors to help you in going back and forth to different pages and being able to view more pages at one time. One other really cool thing you can do if you have a really high resolution monitor is you can put 2 pages up there. So if you have a really widescreen monitor, or if you've kind of pulled Appraise It off to take up both monitors, then you can actually do a split screen there, and then I can just go back and do it like that. And then I can also make them bigger and smaller, and as I pull them out, I can actually see all of the pages. And then as I go back in, I can zoom in and just see what I'm working on. And that's that little section down here in the lower right-hand corner where you can actually adjust the zoom level. Okay, so let's go back to the topics here. Report viewer mode. So I'm not going to necessarily show you report viewer mode because it's not really necessary to show you. Most of you are not going to use it, but one of the cool things is if you have a friend or if you have a colleague or if you have a client that is in need of a Mismo XML viewer, they can download Appraise It Pro for free from our website. And when they go to register, there'll be an option there to register it in report viewer mode. And what that means is they won't be able to edit the report, but they'll be able to open up any Mismo XML file and view it in a really friendly display, just like you see here. So they'll be able to actually see your Mismo XML with everything filled in on the form the way it should be. And then the other thing is that they'll be able to open up any type of Appraise It Classic or Appraise It Profile. So you'd be able to instead of sending them a PDF, you could just send them your Appraise It Pro or your Appraise It Classic file, and then they could open that up in the report viewer. And that's free of charge to anybody. So you may want to, if you have any colleagues or if you have any clients that might be in need of something like that, I think the only one that was floating around there for a while was the Alamode XML viewer, but they have stopped really modifying it, and it's quite buggy, and they're not really doing anything with it. So we thought we would make a report viewer mode so that people could use Appraise It Pro in doing that. Finally, we're going to look at getting help and service statuses. Both of these pretty much go together. Now, getting help is under the support tab up here at the top. Pretty much what you're used to in Appraise It Classic. Everything you need is here. We've got the check for updates. We've got the knowledge base. We've got our chat support. They may direct you in here to do a remote assistance so they can log into your computer. We also have a section here called API and Scripting Documentation. This will open up a web page, and it will take you to this web page here. Now, this is advanced stuff. This is more for people who are wanting to integrate with Appraise It. So if you know someone who is, they can simply go to api.sfrep.com. Or if you are really good at scripting and you want to do a lot of scripting for custom scripts and things like that, this will teach you how to do it. You'll pretty much need a programming background, though, to be able to do some stuff like this. But it's here if you need it. And, of course, we have all of our social media and our YouTube account, which has all of our how-to videos. But one thing that is new in Appraise It Pro is checking service status. So when you click on this is going to have to pull it over to this monitor so you can see it. But this is going to open up our service status page. You can see, let's see, CompLink, we had a problem with CompLink a couple of days ago. And you can click on that and it'll tell you what happened and that when it was resolved with timestamps. So you can see if let's say there's some kind of problem with, I don't know, with flood maps, then that would show up here. But the other cool thing is you don't actually have to come here to even see that. We notify you if there is a problem when you open up Appraise It Pro, or if you're using Appraise It Pro and we've discovered an issue, this will turn red and a little pop-up will come up here in the lower right that'll tell you that we're having some type of problem. And you can just click on that and see kind of what the issue is. And then what I would tell you to do is if you see something like that, if you go to our Facebook page or our Twitter account, but most of you probably have Facebook, if you jump over to our Facebook page, then we'll give you a little bit more information. It's a little bit easier to read, like, hey, why is this happening? What do we know so far? You can kind of get an update on when we think the estimated time of resolution is, something like that. Okay, that I think is going to bring everything to a close. Now, like I said, Appraise It Pro is available right now. And so all you'll have to do in order to get it, and like I said, don't worry, you can have Appraise It Classic and Appraise It Pro on the same system at the same time. So I would encourage you, if you want to start playing around with Appraise It Pro, it doesn't cost anything extra. As long as you're on our monthly plan, you get Appraise It Pro. So all you have to do is contact our sales department. You can do that by email, sales@sfrep.com, or you can call them at 800-523-0872. They'll be glad to help you out and kind of, get you set up. And really, it's going to be simple. They're going to send you a download link. They have to do some stuff on our end first in our billing system, get you activated for it. And then they'll send you a download link. You go and you download it. You run the install. It installs it, and it's a really fast install. It's like a third of the time it takes to install Appraise It Classic. And then when you first run it, it's going to do all the conversions of your common responses, your F keys. All that stuff's going to get converted over, as well as your neighborhood database and your lender database and all that kind of stuff. And then it's going to index all of your reports as well. And all of that stuff will be converted over on first run. It doesn't take very long. And then you can start playing with it. Of course, you can start something in Appraise It Classic and move it over to Appraise It Pro for it to finish. But you can't obviously go the other way. So you can't start something in Appraise It Pro and then finish it in Appraise It Classic. So just keep that in mind. But if you really want to kind of start playing with it, you can open up some of your old reports, start playing around with it, and it will not disrupt your workflow in Appraise It Classic. Now, the next question that I'm sure a lot of you are typing out right now is, will I have to move to Appraise It Pro, and how long can I keep Appraise It Classic? The answer to that question is that we plan on fully supporting Appraise It Pro for at least the next year. And then after that, we will slowly kind of stop supporting it. Like we'll still support it, but new forms and stuff are only going to be added to Appraise It Pro. New features are only going to be added to Appraise It Pro. If there's some fancy new form that you're going to need that's going to come out in a year and a half, that'll only be added to Appraise It Pro. So just keep that in mind. Eventually, we're going to be moving everything over to Appraise It Pro. It's a 64-bit program. It is built on the most up-to-date, modern Microsoft design environment, and it's built specifically for Windows 10. It will work on Windows 8 and Windows 7, but it's built specifically for Windows 10. So it is where we are moving everything over to. I would encourage you to start taking a look at it. Don't let it intimidate you. I know a lot of people are like, hey, I don't really do well with learning new things. A lot of this is very intuitive. And if you just play with it for a little while, you'll pick it up really quickly. So play with it at your own pace, and then you can start moving everything over to it. So I would encourage you to do that. Once again, all you got to do, email sales@sfrep.com, or better yet, call them or our tech support. Both of them can handle this for you. 800-523-0872. So let me take a look at some of these. If we have any other questions that have come in. Let's see here. Oh man, I need my glasses. The text addendums are numbered in Appraise It Pro. Is there a way to change them to be lettered? Text addendum A, text addendum B, etc. I think let's switch you back here. I don't want to do that again. There we go. Let's see. I think you can change the title. You won't be able to. Let me do the same thing with generic map. Yeah, see, I could type in generic map A here if I wanted. If I can actually spell today, generic map A instead of generic map 2, or actually I guess that would be B. So I can do that, but it will still, like, you can't actually change what it says over here on the left. So that's a yes and no. Hopefully that's kind of what you were referring to. So you can make those changes, but you won't be able to make the changes over here as it shows up in the table of contents. Let's see. Mike said the text addendums are numbered. Oh, that was the one I just read. Let's see. Mike says, sorry for coming in late. Can you import from old reports like neighborhood data, etc.? Most certainly can. If you come over here to, I think it is in, there's two ways to do it. If I can remember correctly, it's under edit, I think. Oh, no, it's under home. So there's import here. So I could simply browse in one of my, I could just simply browse in one of my old Appraise It Classic reports or an Appraise It Pro report, and then it'll list the sections here. So if I go to, let's see, Draw Data, and then go to reports, let's do classic reports. No, let's see. I'd say the problem is, like I said earlier, is this is a brand new install of Windows, so I don't have a lot of the stuff that I was using to demo that. But when you open it up, then you'll be able to, you have all the sections listed here, and you could just click on neighborhoods and it'll just bring in the neighborhood section. The other way that you can do that is over here back in the backstage under open. So this is the equivalent of the file open menu, or excuse me, search. When you have your search listings here, you can just simply right click on one of them and say import, and that'll start that import process as well. So if you don't know, if you need to search for which actual report that you need to search from, you'll probably end up doing a lot of your importing from here. So you just find that report by doing your search, and then you can right click on it and then select import, and then you can begin the import process to bring in just the neighborhood database, or excuse me, just to bring in the neighborhood section or whatever section you're looking for. Let's see, Jennifer said, could you quickly go over making a template again since we couldn't see this? Yeah, okay. I totally agree with you. Okay. So templates are really simple. Templates are nothing more than report files. They're no different from any other report file. It's just that you're designating in a template so that it shows up in that same area. So if you wanted to create a template from scratch, all you'd have to do is come over here and either add or subtract whatever you want to show up in the contents over here on the left and get it ordered the way you want. You could also fill in data here. You could fill in, put images, maps, whatever you want to put in there. And then, but instead of saving it, when you go to say save, you come here to save as. And when you click on save as, it's going to have a little pull down menu here to either save as a report or to save as a template. The only difference between these two is that when you save it as a template, it's going to show up under 10.0. In this case, it'll show up as a 10.04 UAD template. So if I type this in and call it Lake Junaluska, click Save. Now when I come back over here to File New and I select UAD, you'll see that now I have a template for Lake Junaluska. If I open that up, it will open it up, and everything will be there just as if I was, say, cloning a report. That's why I said that templates are kind of merging that concept of cloning reports and skeletons. So hopefully that makes sense for you. Boy, let's see here. Hopefully, Jennifer, let me know if that answers your question. Chris says, are there any other new hidden features that might help speed writing reports up? That's so subjective. I think that, being able to easily with just one letter, selecting the different checkboxes will definitely speed things up. We've tried to make it so that you can keep your hands on the keyboard instead of going to the mouse as much as possible. Also, the responses. So if I wanted to do a response, let's say I have Asheville here. So there's Asheville. And then what I can do is I can click on, press Control and the F key to assign a response to a key. And that's very similar to how it was in Appraisal. So I can do Control F3, and now this shows up as F3. But I can also come in here. I think there is a selection. Actually, I think it's right here. We can just click on this plus, and I can give it a title, and I can say, let's put something else in there. I want to put Lake Junaluska in there. And so now I can go to manage responses. I can call it that. And then I can type in whatever I want here if I wanted to do it that way. So let's say that's going to be, and I don't want to actually assign to a key. So you can have all of your F keys here if you want, but you can also put ones in that aren't actually assigned to an F key. So you see now I have one that's assigned as F3. So if I go into city and I hit F3, that's going to put Asheville in there. If I go in there though and I just want to select it, I can just double click it. It'll put it in there. And this, I think, is really going to save you guys a lot of time. Watch this. If I type in there and I just type in L, it's going to autofill Lake Junaluska for me. And these are all global responses. So let's say like you don't have to set up Lake Junaluska in every single report. They're always going to be available to you over here on the right-hand side. But that autofill, I think, is really going to save a lot of people a lot of time. I can do the same thing over here, NC, and we'll do Control F2 or Control F3. There we go. I'm going to assign that F3. So now when I come in here, I can just do L, tab, N, tab, and I've just filled all that stuff out. You can put all your zip codes in there that you work in as well. I think that will also save a lot of time for you guys. Let's see. Like under file, there's a search function like the file index in Classic. That is correct, Fadian. If you come over here, search. This is essentially your file index that was in the file menu, and this is much more robust for those of you who just came in. Basically, when you do a search, they'll show up in here in a grid, kind of like you would see in like an Excel. And then when you click on them, you'll have a front view photo. And if you want to open it, you just double click on it, or you can right click to import all or part of that into an already open report file. Mike says, how do you set your default font and have it applied to every report, form, and template? It's just how it was in Appraisal Classic. Default font. Let's say I want to do Calibri. Size 8. Yep. Close. And then everything will be, although Calibri looks very much like Arial does. But what that'll do is that'll change your font everywhere. Or you can do individual. So under legal description, I can change it to Arial Black and then do, let's see, just like that, and only do it for that particular field. Let's see. I think that's everything. So if you have any questions, what I would encourage you to do, if you're watching this video later, or if you come up with any questions later, what I would encourage you to do is, instead of leaving it on this particular video, because I don't go back and I don't check YouTube quite as often, what I would tell you to probably do is go ahead and just send an email to training@sfrep.com if you have a question after we are completed here, and I will answer it there. And if I don't know the answer, I will find it for you. And for those of you that had some questions that I could not answer because I wasn't quite sure of, just send them an email to training@sfrep.com. That comes to me, Matt, directly, and I will find out the answer for you. I actually work in the same office in North Carolina with all of our programmers and all of our forms designers. So if there is a technical question, if there is a how-to question, I have the people that literally wrote this program at my disposal, and I'll go and I'll ask them and get that over for you. All right, let's see if we have any final questions. Doesn't look like we do. All right. Well, if you have any other questions, like I said, training@sfrep.com. If you want to get Appraisal Pro, give our sales department a call or our tech support department, 800-523-0872. Remember, our tech support is open 7 days a week until 8 p.m. each evening. That's Eastern time. You can also email our sales department, sales@sfrep.com. They can then add Appraisal Pro to your account, and then they'll email you back with a download link. You can download it, run the install. It only takes like a couple of minutes to run the install. I think I have a Core i7, a nice beefy computer here because I do video editing, and I'm able to install Appraisal Pro. When I reinstalled everything, I think it took like 45 seconds to install it. It's really fast. And then when you do your first run, it'll convert everything over. And for those of you who may have come in, remember, you can have Appraisal Pro on your system in addition to Appraisal Classic, and they can coexist just fine with each other. So you can kind of learn Appraisal Pro and move over at your own pace. I want to thank everybody for coming. We're going to do a couple more of these. And thank you so much for all the great questions. And once again, if you have any other questions, training@sfrep.com. I hope all of you have a wonderful weekend. Thank God the heat has finally broken in most of the country, so we can have a nice, cool weekend to enjoy. Thank you so much, and I hope that all of you stay safe out there when you're driving around and visiting all your properties. Thanks a lot.